Let me accept.
Yes.
Hi, Sachin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing well. Just a busy life on a holiday. And
Wow.
I'm just,
Yeah.
mm,
In fact, I just forgot that it's weekend. Because I've got lots of schedules, lots of stuff going on today, so I really forgot it.
yeah,
So
yeah. Actually, Sachin, I want you to tell me because I'm quite interested in this. How did you come about developing the behavioral change, communication, and decision making? Can you tell me more about it? What is it about?
you're talking about the yeah, conscious information
Mhm.
analysis.
Exactly, exactly. I'm talking about that.
Yeah, so conscious information analysis is, as the phrase suggests, it's becoming conscious of the environment. It's just becoming aware of the environment. So, most of us are driven by the information that we get. Imagine your boss is shouting at you, and your immediate reaction is to either run away from that place or to shout him back, right?
Mhm.
It's because we get our information, and instead of reading the information, what we do is we behave in a way that's driven by this information, that's triggered by this information. So most of us were born into in a certain situations, and we, as we grow, as we develop,
Mhm.
we install all the informations
Yeah,
as programs. You could say that as
yeah,
programs. So when I say program, it's not necessarily be programs. It's just neurological data or neurological imprintings in our
exactly,
brain. So,
exactly.
as we install this information from our surroundings through experience, this information becomes the foundation for the future, right?
Exactly.
And we now use this data that we actually get from our surroundings as the map toward the future. So we use this information to 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 behave in a certain ways. And
Hmm.
so in order to get the right response, in order to create the right response, what we need to do is we have to first acknowledge the environment, because most of the times we are not aware, because we are driven by this information that we have already collected, right? But the problem is we often do not live in the same environment. We change, life progress, and therefore it's difficult. Otherwise, it's against growth, um, not changing, right? So if you want to change, if you want to change your results, if you want to change the way you respond, first thing is you need to become aware of the environment, aware of
Exactly.
aware of the atmosphere.
Exactly.
Yeah, become aware. So that's where actually this conscious information all come from, and that is conscious, or
And
CIA is
you know,
about.
as you saying about this, talking about having to acknowledge the environment, it's very important as well. I like stressing the significance of it because in order for us to grow, we got to acknowledge our environment, you know, we got to feel our surrounding and be comfortable to live in our surrounding. So once we start to be comfortable, we start to making changes, you know, things that you don't want in our surroundings. Because many
Exactly.
a times when we are not comfortable, we don't when we lose focus actually to change the things that matter.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You're absolutely right because change comes from awareness. If you
Yes.
want to change your life, first you need to know what's going on with your life. Unless you are conscious, you cannot bring any change. Because if you,
Exactly.
yeah, so that's where this conscious information analysis come from. Otherwise, that's the conscious information analysis. The model is about becoming conscious.
Because I wanted to ask you to expand further about this CIA, conscious information analysis, and go more deeper into it. It sounds very interesting and very intriguing into the eyes of a listener. Having to understand that you got to change. You got to accept your situation and change your situations.
Yes, indeed. So actually, it all started when I was having a conversation with one of my friends at a cafe, and we were just talking, and when he was talking, he began to talk about my girlfriend. And the moment he started talking about her, I began to fidget from that place. I could not sit there. I was uncomfortable, and I just wanted to run away from that place. I felt this coldness on my chest, and I
Sort of like
stood
an
from
adrenaline
there.
rush.
Yeah, exactly. So I stood up from there, and I walked to a shop, and I asked him to give me a cigarette. So as I was about to smoke, I asked myself, "Oh my God, what am I doing? You know, why did I? Because I had a nice time with him, and I was having a nice conversation. But why did I wake up from there and come here to have a cigarette? What happened to me?" And that was a kind of a kind of a new world, an exploration for me. So I learned further, I researched further. So it all started when I started to ask, when I started to ask myself, why did I wake up from there? Now I was having a conversation, and I knew when it happened. I knew when actually I began to feel uncomfortable. I began to feel uncomfortable when he began to talk about my ex-girlfriend. So I asked myself, okay, well, right. So what was he talking about? Was he giving me some bad information, something really, uncomfortable? And no, he wasn't. In fact, what he was giving me is that he was talking about something, what she had been doing all the weekend. So it's not really bad at all, and it should not be making me sad or uncomfortable or depressed. Why should it? Because it's a good information. And then I ask myself, and then even though it's a good information, it doesn't have anything bad in it, it doesn't have anything uncomfortable in it, but still, why did that information make me uncomfortable? So I asked myself, how did my brain interpret that information? That's how I actually began to learn about this neurology, psychology, and how we interpret the world. And the reason why I felt uncomfortable is because he began to talk about her, the things that I did not know. So that meant that he knew something about her I didn't know, that I was rejected, I was abandoned, right? Because he knew something about her and I didn't know that information. That means he knew her better than me, and I loved her, right? So that means kind of that I was something like a rejected there. Now this has, of course, I didn't have to create the kind of meaning there because it didn't have anything to do with that. So I ask myself, where did I get that kind of thing from me, or where did I get that kind of thinking? And I just wanted, I also, I actually, went all the way back to my childhood, and I began to explore, read myself, understand myself, and then I learned that, especially during my childhood, I experienced lots of these love failures, especially, when I really wanted to be loved, I was left alone. And those insecurity feelings that I got from as a child, as a child, kind of fed my brain, and it became a neurological imprint. And whenever I see, when I something related to this, like maybe a sign of not loving me, so it drives me crazy. It kind of puts me in an uncomfortable position. It puts me in a position where I feel like I was rejected. So I was going through the same situation, but the situation is not different. But my brain was interpreting this situation as something that I felt that when I was a child, right? No, when I felt abandoned, when I felt rejected, when I when I really wanted to get that all the love and all the appreciation, recognition from my parents, from my peers, from my friends, I didn't get that. And now all these rejections began to be processed through those filters that I received, that I had, or that I got as I was a child. So that's how I actually fell in love with this information thing, and that's how actually I began to learn more about this information and how it affects us. And that's the place I began to write about information and create this model called the conscious information analysis.
Wow, that's so beautiful, Sachin. So now you're mentioning important points here, and I'm just thinking to myself, how can one use this method to unite with their old behaviors?
Well, of course we can. For example, our behavior is the output of of the information processed in your brain, right? So you see a stimuli, or you receive a stimuli. Stimuli is just the information that you get from your surroundings. It could be seeing somebody, or seeing a gesture, or just it could be in a weather, or it could be anything that you feel through your five senses. So once you get this stimuli, once you receive a stimuli, your brain processes that information, and then gives you order to behave in a certain way, right? So imagine you see a snake, and you already have learned that snake is danger, right? It's not really good to touch the snake. You know this because you have learned this as a child. So that information now is the foundation which you see. You look at the future. So whenever you see a snake, what you do is your immediate reaction is to run away from that place, right? Yeah, because you do that because you have that information in your brain. Snake is dangerous, so run away, right? So we kind of develop this mechanism of unconscious response, where we responded to almost all the stimuli without being aware of them. So because it's a good thing, because most of the times, if you want to become conscious almost all the times, it's very difficult. It requires us to use almost all the energy. But
Exactly.
but the problem is, if you're not aware, you're not really seeing it. That's in other words, it means if you're not aware, you're not really seeing it, because you would be seeing through your brain, through your experiences. So when that happens, the problem is, if what you went through, what you experienced, if that was wrong, whatever that you behave would be also wrong, because it's based on the information that you have in your brain, right? Yeah. So in order to have the right response, the best thing that you can do is to actually respond based on a conscious analysis. That means you have to consciously analyze the situation instead of being driven by the information that you have. So you could ask yourself, what is the situation, right? Oh, is the situation danger, or is it what I see, or is it something different? For example, having a conversation with your friend and suddenly he began to shout at you. So instead of shouting him back, that could be one of our immediate reaction. You could just ask yourself, why is he shouting, right? Is he afraid, or has he seen something else, or did he misbehave? So you could ask yourself, these questions, and then you could ask him further to understand his behavior, why he's doing the way he's doing. And if you don't get it, you can still also read his body, his verbal and non-verbal language. You can also, for example, look at the environment, right? Maybe he's tired, maybe he's exhausted, maybe he's having a bad day. There might be a lots of reasons. So by understanding this environment, what you're doing is you're trying to look at the whole picture. And when you see the whole picture, often you do not misinterpret. But when you see the one side of the picture, the problem is that you are very likely to misinterpret. So the better way to have this behavior change, or to use conscious information analysis to actually start to read the environment, read the information fully. So to understand the information, to understand what you need to do is to read the environment of the information.
Yeah, sort of like the atmosphere, emotions, and so on. Because I'm just thinking to myself that you mentioned something, that you mentioned the story of you having to receive a message from your friend. So in that, I see it's like I imagine Viktor Frankl's quote, between a stimulus and a response, there is always a space for us to decide. You see?
Yeah, exactly.
The right answer. So that means there is always a right answer. So between that stimulus and that reaction, there has to be something that we do in that space. So then how then do a person respond the right way? Because we are seeking at approaching people, responding the right way towards things that they are receiving. Because we don't receive the same information the same. That influences us to react in a particular way. And in that also, in this conscious information analysis, I see a lot of things whereby we are trying to help people deal with the emotional selves and making the right choices that will influence the future.
Exactly. Actually, the problem is, yes, of course, that's a very good question, because the problem is most of us do not know how to respond to certain stimuli, how to create a healthy response, and it is necessary to have a healthy response. So I use here, especially when it comes to communication, I use the 4 pillars to create the right response. Now, the 4 pillars are empathy, compassion, and courage and vulnerability. Empathy and compassion. So empathy is the ability to see how the other person is going through. It's ability to understand why the other person feels the way they feel, how they feel it. And compassion is the ability, or it's the quality of helping that person to come out of that misery. So you not only empathize with the person, you not only understand him, but what you're trying to do is when you respect, especially when you respond to certain stimuli, you are compassionate. So your intention now, when it comes to responding to a particular person or in a particular when it comes to responding to a particular person, what you're doing is you are not only understanding him, but also you want to help him to come out of that problem that he is facing. So basically you're responding to the need when you're compassionate. So that is what necessary, because we need to respond to the need, not to our greed, not to based on what we wanted to hear, or not to what we wanted to how we wanted to respond, but we want to respond to the need of the information. So when you are responding with the compassion, you're responding to the need actually. And and courage is the ability to stand up to use that information and to respond in the right way. So that's the courage. And the vulnerability is to be open. To be open. Yeah.
You just hit it on the spot for me. I'm quite excited. I'm just like smiling to myself as you're quoting these things, this information. Because in most cases, I realize that it's difficult to have compassion without you as a person having to understand the psychology that plays in that person. What influences actually the behavior of that person. Many a times we get upset, cross, because maybe certain people act in a particular way to us, but you don't know what is the driving force behind that. As a result, we lack the empathy to understand and to bring the person closer, to say no, to bring about proper reasoning in between, you see. So these are quite important factors, because of having to understand the behavior of another person, what inspires the person to respond this way, and then you start to align yourself, because I think we have to align ourselves with other people for us to be able to have that compassion, that empathy that is required. Because many a times when we fail to receive the information correctly, that's where most of the time there is no harmony, no peace.
Exactly.
You see? And our goal, I suppose, through conscious information is to achieve that level of harmony and peace amongst every humanity, and achieve our goals and reach our destinies that we desired.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for sharing this information.
Yeah, indeed. So actually my mission is to to revolutionize this idea of this model of using conscious information analysis. Because imagine if our children were to use conscious information analysis, or if our children become more conscious of their environment when they communicate, when they respond to certain needs, or when they make a decision. Just think about the positive impacts that it could make on their lives. So most of the times people decide to end their lives because of their lack of ability to create, to understand a certain situation.
And again, as you're saying that, you're right. And I'm thinking to myself that we as human nature, we are free-willed individuals, and each and every choice that we decide is out of a free will that we decide for ourselves. But the thing now that we are bringing forth into the table is that, is it the right reaction in the right situation? Should you have done that or done that?
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly, yeah.
That analysis. So, thank you so much. I wish we have more time to have a conversation in our own platform.
Yeah, definitely. I too wish to have the more conversation like this. But since we have the next conversation is on on what's the day? Is it yeah, next is on Monday. Yeah, Monday.
Okay.
Next one is Monday, and another one is on Tuesday. Sorry, it's Thursday. So Monday and Thursday. Yeah. So we'll be seeing you on next Monday and another Tuesday with a new episode. So I just would love to, just lay with the thought that that if you kind of find this difficult to make a decision, or if you find it quite difficult to have a conversation with your spouse, if you find it difficult to to understand your children, start using conscious information analysis. Start understanding the situation, the environment. Start reading the environment, and then based on the understanding of that environment, create a response that are healthier using these 5 pillars, such as empathy and compassion and vulnerability and courage.
One more question, Sachin.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
see this, it works perfectly on personal level and in every way, in every sphere, actually, of life. But when looking at it, conscious information analysis, how would it work within bigger organizations such as corporates, government sectors, and stuff? What would be the main focus?
So, especially, the problem with most of organizations is it's the inability to, number one, inability to understand the information or understand the needs, whether it's needs of the employees or needs of the customers, or needs of the people. So often we don't understand, or we don't truly understand the needs, what actually that the other person needs. So when they behave in certain ways, what we do is we often miscalculate and misjudge their behavior, right? And this happens because of our inability to create the right, to understand the information correctly. So if we were, just imagine if we were able to understand that information. So for example, you're having a conversation with your customer, right? Or if you're unable to understand their need, if you're unable to understand your need, or the problem often is you will not be able to fulfill the need of that person. That means you're losing your customer, right? And in a sense, if you're unable to understand your employees, imagine you are a boss and you are unable to understand your employees and their needs. The problem is, there is always a conflict between you and the employees. So the best thing you can do is to first have this, awareness to understand. So in order to understand, you need to be conscious first to understand what your employee wants. And that requires a method, that requires a specific way of thinking. And conscious information analysis is one of the best way to do that. You can use conscious information analysis because CIA is built on the principles and the scientific methods to understand, not only to understand the person, to understand the information, but to create the right response based on that understanding. So I think this could change how the organization functions and how the communities functions, especially if people, leaders, if people begin to use this conscious information analysis, and if they begin to teach others conscious information analysis. So I think this could completely change how they communicate and how they share information, because now you're not confused because you know what you're sharing, right? You know how you want to, sort of respond to certain needs. So in that way, I think it can completely change the organization and communities.
Exactly. Exactly. I fully agree with that. And it's quite beautiful. Thank you for the hard work of having to present with me today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Thank you once again, Makaye.